Welcome to Focus Washington. I'm Chuck Conconi. My guest today is Dr. Ron Faucheux, who's head of the Clarus Research Group and a colleague of mine. Welcome. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you, Chuck.
I've been noticing your statistics. Every time something Clarus puts out talks about the president's numbers keep dropping. Why is that?
Well, the president's involved in a lot of very difficult issues right now, and anybody who was president, I think, would be having trouble with that, in fairness to President Obama. One of the big overarching problems that the president has is that when he became president in January, the big issue was improving the economy.
Yes.
The federal government has now spent literally trillions of dollars to that end. And a lot of people don't see any improvement or much improvement. And so that's one of the things that I think is holding him down to some extent. But the health care issue by itself has been a pretty bloody issue, and it's taken its toll.
And it's going even more so. But I think I heard a recent report that the biggest part of the problem now is, even though the economy seems to be having a pickup, is that the unemployment rolls are just growing. It's incredible statistics, 10%.
Sure.
And in places like Detroit, it's phenomenal.
Right. Somebody once said that you can talk about economic improvement over the long term or the short term, but whether you eat tonight and whether you can pay your rent tomorrow and pay your kids' tuition in school has nothing to do with any of that. Those are today problems. And a lot of people are feeling that. And so it really doesn't matter where the statistics look like they may be going in a few months. People are still hurting.
Yeah, the thing about Obama was such enormous popularity and such enormous numbers, as we talked about in January, and here we are 9 or 10 months later. And it looks like that he's going to be a drag on the ticket in the next elections next year, in the congressional elections. He's dropped so quickly. I mean, I realize what you're saying, but is it that it was just shallow, the feelings for Obama?
Well, not necessarily. I think that the American people to this day still like Barack Obama. I think they respect him. They think he's intelligent, he's honest, he's a good guy, he's trying to do the right thing. And I think that still exists with the majority of the American people. I think the American people still want him to succeed and to do a good job. But when you look at it, though, his drop really has been fairly slow. When he took office, he was polling in the mid-60s.
Yes.
And that existed for, up and down a few points, but basically through May. That was the case. And then since May, he basically went from the low to mid-60s down to the low 50s. And one thing that he can take heart in is that he's not going below 50. We had him in one national survey at 49.
I thought I saw
a few
it.
other people had him, at 49. But he tends to bounce back into the low 50s and stay there. So that's in the scheme of things, that's not particularly bad news for him.
Well, there sounds like there's such incredible hostility against him. It seems to be
Well,
growing.
there is.
Or maybe I'm just hearing it from the conservative right.
No, there is. I mean, the negative on Barack Obama has risen, and it's intensified considerably. And as a result of that, his political effect, even though I don't think it was ever his intention to do that, in fact, quite the opposite, is that he has really become a polarizing
Yes.
Figure, which is having a divisive implication for national politics. Because when you look at national surveys like the recent poll we did by Clarus in the Virginia election, basically all the Democrats are for the Democratic candidate for governor, all the Republicans are for the Republican candidate for governor, and it's strictly a matter of battling this out among the independent voters.
Now, I know you're a political historian, but it seems odd to me that it seems to be one of the worst times of divide between Republicans and Democrats in this country. I mean, where you have only one Republican who votes
Right.
for the committee in the health care, and they just don't exist anymore.
Right. Well, back in the 1950s and 1960s, political scientists used to talk about the need for a rational two-party system where you had liberals in one party and conservatives in the other, and they both stood for separate things. Well, we have that now. and I actually don't think it's working very well for the country, because I think people are spending too much time figuring out ways to kill the opposition as opposed to come together and help the country. And I think part of it is this minute-by-minute coverage on cable news, minute-by-minute attack and counterattack on the internet is polarizing the two political camps, and the people in the middle, the independents, aren't happy with any of it.
Well, very quick last question, because we're running out of time, is what do your polls show in predictions for the off-year elections, for the Democrats in particular? What's going to happen?
Well, in the two major governor's elections, we've only polled in Virginia, and it shows that Bob McDonnell, the Republican, has a meaningful lead at this point, and it's a lead that has grown over the last 5 or 6 weeks. In New Jersey, looking at the polls and analyzing what's going on, you have a third candidate there, an independent candidate, who seems to be hurting the Republicans right now. Incumbent Governor John Corzine, by most standards, would be defeated this time. But having an option to vote for a third candidate, pulling it away from Chris Christie, the Republican candidate, is complicating that race.
Thank you, Ron, for being here. I'm Chuck Conconi, and this has been Focus Washington.